We're focusing on your fairway woods, and the answers you've given us indicate you have what we would call a classic hook. So a shot that starts straight or to the right of target and then curves too far to the left through the air. You've also told us that your preference would be to play with a draw. So still a shot that starts right and curves left, but it's a much less exaggerated curve, and it's one that has the ball finish on or close to the target. Your hook is caused by an excessively in-to-out swing path, which is where the club head is moving too far to the right of target through impact, and you also have an excessively closed face. When the face points to the left of the direction of the swing, the ball will curve to the left through the air, and the more the face is closed, the more the ball will curve. So to change your hook to a draw, we don't want to change these two elements, we just want to reduce the severity. If we can get them a little bit more neutral, we will end up with a more neutral ball flight. Now luckily there's one element of the golf swing that will affect both of these in exactly the way we want, and that is the body rotation towards the target during the downswing. So starting with the swing path, we have a stick here on the ground that we're going to use as a reference. It's lined up just outside the toes of my right foot and it's parallel to the target line. The first thing to notice is when we bring the club down from the top, the more the shaft is angled inwards in relation to that line, the more likely and the more severely we will be able to swing from in to out. On the other hand, if we start to bring this club out closer to the line, we will be approaching impact from less inside, and that means the in to out swing path will be reduced. By placing the club in this position, the easiest way to bring this club out on top of that line is to rotate my hips towards the target. This in turn rotates the upper body, the arms and the club. So on the way down, if I was adding a little bit of hip rotation towards the target, I would be bringing the club down closer to neutral and less from the inside. So by adding hip rotation early in the downswing, I can get the club into a position where I'll have a more neutral swing path. Now secondly is the club face. If again we look at the downswing and I use a slower hip rotation than what is ideal, I can very easily get the hands to release the club early and close the face. This is of course adding to the hook. On the other hand, if I'm firing the hips a little bit more aggressively, it's going to be harder to release the club early, and that means we're going to have a less closed face. Now it's not just a case of firing the hips as fast as we possibly can, because we can obviously exaggerate and overdo the move, which means we would get the club to go to the outside and swing across from out to in, and we would delay the closing of the face so much that the face would end up open. So we could potentially go from a hook to a slice simply by overdoing this one feeling. And that means this is a case of calibrating it. We need to find out how much more we need to use the hips to create the more neutral swing path and delay the closing of the face enough to go from a hook to a draw and not overdo it. So let's get a feeling for these two sections individually first before we put them together. Swing path first would be bringing the club down, angled the long way inwards, and then slowly adding some hip rotation and noticing how you'll get the club closer and closer to neutral as you do this. So if we can get the club shaft in a reasonably neutral position on the way down, we then have the release, and that's going to be mainly focusing on the club face. If we take the club head towards the ball from here with the hands only, you'll notice how easy it is to close the face. However, if you add hip turn to that, you'll notice that the face either comes down less closed or potentially even open. So we've got the added hip turn as the start of the downswing to give us a more neutral path, and then we have a continued hip turn into impact to stabilize the club face and delay it from closing too soon. Once you've done these two sections individually, it's time to put them together into one flowing swing. So beginning to end, nice and smooth, and your main swing thought is that you're adding hip turn to the downswing from the very beginning and all the way down and through impact. which again is getting the club shaft more neutral and the face less closed. So up to the top, and then feeling a good strong hip turn towards the target from the very beginning of the downswing and all the way through impact. And once you've got a feeling for that, it's time to hit some shots. The golf ball will tell you whether you're doing it enough and you've turned the hook into a draw, whether you've overdone it and you're now missing to the right, or whether you're not doing it enough, the ball is still hooking too far left and you need to exaggerate the feeling more. So again, a final practice swing, feeling a good strong hip turn towards the target, and then hit the shot.